You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 2, Episode 11, A New Ally. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. I don't think I'd ever driven to Freya's house faster. I couldn't wait to show her what was on the flash drive, but I wasn't sure if it was because it might solve the mysteries of not just her past, but also mine, or if I was hoping it would somehow provide a way for us to be together. It didn't matter. Either way, she had a right to know what was going on, and to be told the secrets that had been kept from her all these years, and it seemed right that I was going to be the one to tell her. I just hadn't worked out how I was going to do it. Trevor was an agent, and that meant his whole life was constantly under surveillance, including his home computer. I couldn't just plug in the flash drive and access an FBI file. Someone would know. Freya had just bought a new laptop for Blaze, and I was praying it was still off the grid. But then there was the possible issue of the file being encrypted. I had thought of that halfway to Freya's. It might not open on a civilian computer. I decided I would cross that bridge when I got to it. As I turned down their street, I saw Trevor's car just starting to back out of their garage. I panicked and quickly veered into Talia's driveway, which wound around behind her house and would keep me from being seen, I hoped. I pulled in as far as I could and then hopped out of my car. I ran half-crouched back to the edge of the house and peeked around. Trevor's car sped by, and he made no indication that he'd noticed me at all. Good. I definitely didn't want him around when I dropped this bombshell on his wife. I didn't expect to run into him at this hour. It was nearly 11. He must have decided to go in late, given what Freya had been through. What a good husband, I sneered to myself. I headed back to my car, wondering if I should go ahead and leave it where it was, just in case Trevor decided to come home early. Before I could make a decision, I passed by Talia's kitchen window, and something caught my eye. I stopped and, at the risk of being a peeping Tom, pressed my face closer to the glass so I could focus. There were papers spread out on the table, but there was something familiar about the extra long, connected sheets of paper cascading across the surface. They looked almost like the CAT scans. I pushed my face as close to the window as I could without breaking my nose and focused my eyes. Holy shit! Freya's CAT scans from her secret FBI file were on Talia's kitchen table. I cupped my hands around my face to block out the sunlight obscuring my vision and realized that Freya's entire secret FBI file was on Talia's kitchen table. Click. I froze. "Turn around slowly," came the familiar female voice, but with a new hardened tone. I turned around and Talia was standing there, pointing a gun at my head, and looking all too capable of pulling the trigger and getting on with her day. Still, I realized I was smiling. "Something funny, Agent Ripley? This isn't my Annie Oakley Halloween costume, you know. I'm actually pointing a real gun at you." "I'm sure it's real," I chuckled. "But this is hilarious, if you think about it. In a sad, sadistic sort of way." "What the hell are you talking about?" "You and Trevor. The two most important people in the world to Freya, and you're both—" I shook my head, chuckling at the irony. "Both what?" she asked, sounding agitated. "You know what you are." "I am just doing my job." I chuckled again. "Well, that's a relief. I'm sure Freya will be glad to know you've been paid to be her best friend," I said, forgetting why the situation had struck me funny at all. Talia didn't respond, but her expression softened, even if her grip on her revolver didn't. "Whose side are you on?" I asked. "Are you working for Trevor?" It was her turn to chuckle. "Trevor? No, Trevor didn't hire me." "But he knows who you are, doesn't he?" I pushed. She'd been living right under his nose for nearly 3 years. He had to know. He was a prick, but he was a damn good agent. She lowered her revolver. "Let's talk inside. Your car." She made a quick motion of cupping her ear and nodding ever so slightly toward the house. I got the message. Her house was bugged. Okay, after you. I motioned for her to go ahead, but she was no rookie. She waved her gun to indicate she would follow me to the car. I climbed in behind the steering wheel and she got in the passenger seat. She gave a deep sigh and I glanced in her direction. She was looking at me like a mother who had caught her son stealing money out of her purse. She laid the gun down on the dash and I frowned. It's not loaded anyway, she shrugged. Well, my instincts were definitely dulling in my old age. Are you kidding? Maybe, she winked. What do you know about the file? Not much, I replied curtly. I had only read a few pages when you took it from my apartment. This took her by surprise. You had the file in your possession? Who gave it to you? Now I was confused. Wait, you mean you didn't break into my apartment while I was asleep on the couch and take the file from my coffee table? No. She was telling the truth. Okay, I could cross Talia off the list, if she had been on it in the first place. I realized that she must have stolen it from whoever took it from me, or the mystery person gave it to her. My head started to spin. My money was still on Trevor, but before I could ask her, I heard a soft giggle. Asleep on your couch? Who are you, Fox Mulder? Don't you have a bed? She smirked at me. I couldn't help but grin in return, but I pretended to get defensive. It had been a long day, all right? Haven't you ever spent the night on your couch? No. You have anything else in common with Mulder I should know about? I gave her a perplexed look, and she raised both eyebrows at me a few times, all the while grinning at me mischievously. It took me a minute. I had to access the part of my brain that held the old episodes of X-Files. Processing. Then I remembered Mulder's insinuated penchant for porn. My confusion changed to disgust. Believe it or not, Talia, or whatever your real name is, not all men are into that sort of thing. I'd much rather watch the cooking channel. She regarded me for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and shook her head. You don't believe me? Oh, I believe you. That's the problem. It's just a shame, that's all, she trailed off. What's a shame? If she was saying it was a shame I didn't like porn, then I was going to tell Freya to find a new best friend. But wait, she needed to do that anyway, I reminded myself, seeing as how her current pal was a big fat phony. You're quite a catch, Agent Ripley. It's a shame you're hopelessly in love with a married woman. I suddenly choked on nothing, gasping for air. When I regained my composure, I noticed she was smiling at me. First Trevor, and now Talia. Did the whole world know? What are you talking about? She's my best friend's wife, I stammered. She waved a hand in my face. Save it. I know about your falling out with Trevor, and why. But anyone who's seen you and Freya in the same room together knows you two are much more than friends. You said you two. Has Freya ever told you how she feels about me? I didn't realize until I said it aloud, but I sounded like the awkward 17-year-old me, interrogating all of Amanda Mavis's friends, trying to find out if she wanted to go to prom. She didn't have to. What do you mean? She sighed loudly, and I just knew it was one of those "why are men so dense" sighs. You're wrong. About what? I had been wrong a lot lately. She was going to have to be more specific. She looked in my eyes now, conveying that what she was about to tell me would either make me very happy or very sad, or both. The two most important people in the world to Freya? They aren't Trevor and me. You think they're Trevor and me, I stated, more than asked. The thought had crossed my mind, based solely on the fact that I'd known her longer than either of them, but it was nice to have it confirmed. No. I think her 3 gorgeous boys share the number 1 spot. But you are definitely number 2. I got a tingle just then, and I couldn't stop the unmistakable shudder that swept through me. Talia had no idea how she had just made my day, my week, my month, hell, my millennia. I tried to extinguish my smile, but after a few attempts just decided to work around it. I still wanted answers. Okay, so you know a lot about me. Who the hell are you, really? And who hired you? I demanded, if it's possible for one to be demanding, whilst grinning from ear to ear. All I can tell you is that I'm here to keep Freya safe. She is my assignment. She didn't break eye contact as she said this. How did Trevor find out about you? She took a deep breath. All he knew is that someone else had been assigned to protect Freya, and we communicated via text only. He didn't know it was me until she saw a text I'd sent him. She recognized my number and confronted him. I had to smile. That sounded like my Freya. How did he react? I got one text. Get a new phone number. He didn't have to tell me it was stupid of me not to have a separate phone for our communications. I got a new number that night, and Freya pretended to buy it, but she's so much smarter than he gives her credit for. No shit. If you had no idea that I was undercover, then what are you doing here? She asked, as if it had just occurred to her. I stared into the rearview mirror. I was hiding from Trevor. Why? I decided it was time to tell Freya everything I know, so far. Were you planning on handing her the file for some light reading? She joked. That thought occurred to me, but I found something else, something more, I think. I hope. I reached into my pocket and she leaned back, throwing one hand in the air and the other reaching for her gun. Calm down, I reassured her, retrieving the flash drive from my pants pocket. I held it out in front of us. It was amazing how something so small could hold the key to my past, and possibly my future. Where did you get this? She had relaxed again, but I couldn't help but be impressed by her reflexes. I was sure that if she'd wanted to take me down by now, she could have. Staples, down on Grand Avenue. Cost me $40. I glanced at her and she was giving me a glare, but she pursed her lips to keep a smile at bay. I had to release a laugh before I gave her a serious answer. I was granted access to the FBI database, and I found it in a folder called Purgatory. At that, she tried to grab the flash drive out of my hand, but I reflexively recoiled. I wasn't ready to give it to her just yet. You found Purgatory? Who told you about it? No one. I just found it, I answered honestly. I had done all the hard work myself, after all. She took a few deep breaths, but the intensity in her eyes persisted. She gave me a look, and I could tell she didn't believe that I had just stumbled upon a secret file folder that could only be opened through an invisible link by accident. It also hadn't escaped my attention that if she knew about Purgatory, whoever she was, she had a higher security clearance than I did. What's on it? She asked excitedly. I don't know yet. I need a computer that's off the grid to look at it. We stared at the little bugger for a moment. I'll be right back. She got out of the car and ran into her shed that was across the driveway from the house. I watched the doorway of the small storage unit, and within seconds she re-emerged, carrying something. As she climbed back into the car, I got a good look at the small laptop in her hands. It was covered in alternative rock stickers. I gave her a sideways glance, furrowing my eyebrows. I know a guy. He makes computers untraceable for a living. He's very good at it. Anyway, Does your friend also know how to make it possible to view FBI files on a civilian computer? I asked, just trying to torture her a little. Trust me. She nodded toward her open hand, half rolling her eyes at me, and I placed the flash drive carefully in her palm. We looked at each other and both took a deep breath. She plugged it into the side of the laptop, and we watched the screen in anticipation. When the first box appeared, she clicked Save. That only took a minute, and then she unplugged the flash drive and handed it back to me. I hadn't expected her to do it that way, but I didn't protest. I had a good feeling about trusting her, at least for now. Plus, I reasoned, it was probably a good idea to have the information in more than one place, just in case we needed it. She opened the saved file on the laptop, and an error message came up. Something about the computer not having administrative permission to view this type of file. My heart sank. Then, Talia started to type furiously, opening system files I didn't recognize, getting error message after error message, and then, suddenly, there it was. Freya's file. I was stunned, and starting to like Talia more and more. We both scanned the screen. It was a standard personnel file for Freya Tamar McKenna, a.k.a. the love of my life, and at first glance didn't look to contain anything unusual. As I scrutinized, however, the same errors I had noticed in her paper file were popping out at me. Her birth date was listed as July 1st, 1971, not 1972. The file said she had joined the FBI in March of 1991, just like the old enlistment form I'd seen when she was, well, if she was indeed born in 1971, she would have been 19. What kind of moron recruits a 19-year-old to be an FBI agent, plucking her right out of college to do so, no less? I was fairly sure that even 20 years ago, an FBI agent was required to have a bachelor's degree, or 4 years as a cop. At 19, Freya had neither. And what about my memories? Did I just imagine that we dated, graduated college, and then... Well, there was a big chunk that was a little fuzzy, but it couldn't have been more than a few days or weeks. Could it? Suddenly, she was with Trevor in the Air Force, and I was in the FBI, alone. As Talia focused on the laptop, I tried to recall my earliest memory of Trevor and Freya being together, and instantly my head began to throb. I closed my eyes and massaged my temple for a few seconds. "Look at this!" Talia suddenly exclaimed. I opened my eyes and followed her fingers to the screen. In a larger text box there was a notation that said, RVW Program, Winkle Labs, Successful Integration and Test, Recommend Field Duty. It was dated 13 May 1991, followed by the initials GLM. "It confirms the information on the CAT scans," Talia said softly, almost to herself. "Yes, but it doesn't make any sense," I snapped. I would have sworn on a stack of Spider-Man comics that Freya was born in 1972, not 71. I was beyond frustrated now and really wanted to talk to Freya. I know that Winkle Labs used to do drug testing on college students, and Freya and I were part of one during our spring break in 91, but wait, she cut me off, putting a hand on my shoulder. Both of you were part of a Winkle Labs experiment? The RVW program? I shook my head. Yes. No, I don't remember anything called RVW, but we were part of a routine drug test, not an experiment. Talia, what do you know? Something was causing my pulse to soar, and I didn't like it one bit. Rip, she said gently, as a friend would before telling you your dog died. RVW stands for Rip Van Winkle. It was the code name for a top-secret government experiment. Winkle Labs was hired to test young subjects, to be sleeper agents. I stared at her, dumbfounded. She was talking about shit that I'd only seen in movies. Rip, she was looking at me more seriously than when she'd been pointing a gun at my head. You and Freya were both implanted with an experimental technology to create assassins.
You're listening to Big World Network.